Good morning. Good morning. How are you doing right today? Good. Good deal. Welcome to our EAA Chapter 1219 monthly May meeting. So what we'll do to get started, as we always do, is say the Pledge of Allegiance. Everybody, please stand up.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, I'm glad everybody came this morning. We had a good crowd. Y'all came here to see me or what's going on? That's it. You know, back by popular demand, or actually nobody demanded this, I just kind of wanted to do it. I got two fun little jokes first to start out with today. Mr. Casey, I'm going to pick on you since you're here.
I'm a joke? Is that
I'm going to get I'm going to get in trouble. All right.
You don't have any new certificates coming up.
It's not going to get any better after I say it.
Don't worry, it's not going to change.
Yeah.
Seat's right here. Your seat's right here.
So, what happened when the student pilot, since you're DP, what happened when the student pilot passed through the rainbow during his final test? This is not an orientation joke. Any idea? He passed with flying colors. I got one more. And I'm going to give this to the A&P in the room. What do airplane builders say about their job? It's riveting.
Not apparent to
Now we'll get started to the serious things. So, what we like to do, kind of to start our meetings out, is to introduce anybody or have anybody that hasn't been here before to just kind of introduce themselves, and you don't have to say a lot, but just maybe your name, why you're here, who you are, and kind of, do we have anybody new? I'll start in the front. Anybody that hadn't been here before?
Obviously, I haven't, but I'm
Yes.
just meeting.
So Cliff Kaufman, this is Cliff Kaufman. Cliff owns a jet prop. I train in jet props. He lives in the Shreveport area, and when I'm done here flying, we're going. I mean, when I'm done talking, we're going flying. So Cliff's here for me, and
So you got to put up with Jonathan.
it's going to get better.
Ask for a discount.
Let's see, second row, I think I recognize.
We're here.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is my son, Danny Cruz. He takes flying lessons with Mr. Mark.
Nice.
The youngest.
That's
We've
exciting.
got another here, right? So
Yes, in the picture. Yes. Valentino Cruz.
here we go.
And I'm Jessica.
Nice to meet you. I'm glad y'all could make it this morning.
I was waiting for him to get around the back end. I was going to bring you in.
And he chose Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
CFII.
And she's still in here.
This works for me.
Mark's great. Mark. Next row, anybody in the third row? Oh, y'all look familiar faces back there. Last row. About the back right there, Mr. Kennedy. Yes, sir.
Hi, yes, I'm Jerry Hunsaker. Just recently moved to Lufkin. I work for Lockheed. I've been here, and I've had my private pilot's license, and then just college and then getting a job kind of killed flying for me for a while. So I'm trying to get back into flying.
You did it wrong.
Yeah. So can we access to an F-35?
I used to build the F-35s, then I came down here to work at this plant.
We've got an area you can build in over here.
Except for they don't use rivets anymore to build the aircraft, so that's not working.
Okay. Yes, sir.
We've got two I want to recognize. Back on the back row, James Eureka.
Morica. But I've been here already.
You have been here, but we're saying welcome back. Came back. And it's always kind of like if you come back again after a while.
Oh, God.
And another one I want to recognize that's been here before, it's been gone off to college, is Kylie McCartney, right here in the back row. That's what she said.
Which went to Hudson at some point, right? Yeah, we talked earlier. I saw her. I was like, I know who.
But she's not just going to college. I mean, she's going for what?
Aviation.
There we go.
Ooh. According to Deanna, you got it right.
That's how you do it.
Where are you going?
Henderson State University,
Where's that?
Arkansas. Arkadelphia, Arkansas.
Arkadelphia.
Between Texarkana and Louisville.
We have we'll get to our special guest here in just a minute, but I have a very special guest speaker today, so I don't want to take a whole lot of time before that. We just cover a couple little business things before we get into the fun part of the meeting. So first we have our secretary's report, Mr. John Owen. I did pass out the minutes from the last meeting, and so I hope you, and it was also included in the last email that I had sent out. So if you've had a chance to look over that, you have to approve or any questions about this.
Motion to accept as presented.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Second.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any opposed? All approved? Next is our treasurer's report. Mr. Walker.
I do have a treasury report. We have 3 accounts. We take care of. One's our general operating account. We have $8,200 in our general operating. Our fuel account has $1,099, and our Ray Aviation account has a residual balance of $6,000. All the bills are paid. I did want to say we received a donation last month of $200 to have our guests.
That's why I'm here this week.
I don't. We had one.
Taking notice of how that
I think Cliff is going to cover your speaking engagement today. Cliff's here, so we'll defer that to him. But all the bills are paid, and that's our bank balance. So that's our treasury report.
No questions about that? Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Done.
Second.
Lane Thompson, the second. Any opposed? All approved, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed. All right, next on the list, I have a hangar report from Mr. Mark Dunn himself.
All full, all repaired, no bills.
All full, all repaired, all good.
Great lighting.
Oh, yeah. And then our Young Eagles report by Mr. Bailey.
I'll come up here.
You'll come up here?
Head.
And I'm a failure because I forgot about Young Eagles.
What a
I'm
failure.
so sorry.
No worries. So last week we flew a total of 8 kids. Nothing too crazy, but we're excited about the next event, which will be next month. So that will be June 11th. I'll be sending out an email about a week prior, so you guys have plenty of time to schedule it on your schedules. I'll send an email out, give you guys a heads up. That's it. Thank you.
Yes, I completely forgot.
Was the one last week or is the next one? One of them was school specific, right?
Ma'am, I'm
Was
sorry.
that the one
It was
last
going to
week?
be, but they scheduled it last minute, so.
Oh, okay.
Bailey, does A&M have an aviation program?
They don't, but you know. They got other people who do that sort of thing there too. So. I'm doing airplanes then college, so I got the order right there.
All right, let's see what's next on our list here. Oh, I like this part. This is a very important part. So we like to, a part of us coming together is to recognize members and people here that may have had some accomplishments in their flying, whether it be their career or their hobby, any type of endorsements or check rides that they may have taken. Do we have anybody here? I'll move this if we do. Ring the bell. Anybody here with any accomplishments over this
I'd like to
past
recognize somebody, and it's not myself. I haven't done anything in a long time, but I do have a student that made the
exciting thing about soloing last week. And I want to recognize them on their solo training that we've got. And he may want to say a few words about his experience. But Chad Lee, if you'll stand up, and you're welcome to go ring the bell.
Yeah, that was definitely an experience, I tell you. I kept thinking Kent was messing with me. You know, we made 3 or 4 good landings. I said, all right. And he said, all right, this time solo. I said, you think? But I did it, and I'm pretty pumped up about it. But I'll tell you, this is one of the most exciting things I've done. And hopefully my wife will get into it here shortly.
Is the landing gear still straight, Ken?
Hey, Chad, what was the last thing?
A little crooked.
I got out. He says, any words of wisdom? What did I tell you, Chad?
Don't mess up my plane. I don't know what he said.
Well, that's exciting.
And I also have one more I want to recognize for accomplishment. Hudson, and I'm talking now as a school board member of Hudson, we have an aviation program that we started because of you, Mr. Davis, that implemented our aviation program. We funded that. And we were very fortunate to come across somebody that wanted to accomplish aviation, and they went on and got their private license and taught the students in aviation class. We have some of our students here in the room. And that instructor has now retired. I'm talking about Carla Ladner. Carla, if you'll please stand. Carla's retiring this year. She's taught for a total of 37 years in the education. She spent 19 years in Georgia, 18 years in Texas, and has been the last 5 years in the aviation instructor for Hudson School. So Hudson School is very proud of Carla and everything she's done. So thank you, Carla.
Thank you.
And we also have a co-school board member, Sean Penn, as well.
Who's done nothing.
And I would like to ask you to go ring the bell.
Ring the bell for retirement? Yeah.
Carla, ring the bell for Carla.
You got to read your shirt.
Oh, I have to read my shirt. This is what I plan to do.
Have a retirement.
That's me.
Any other accomplishments? I don't want to leave anybody out. Okay. So at this time, we have our program and our guest speaker today. Now, I could introduce him, but I think we'll let Mark Dunn, if he's okay with it, introduce Mr. Joe Casey.
I'll do that. So, how many of you have been to a doctor lately? Yeah? Been to see the IRS?
I'm really anxious to see where this goes.
So the word that goes behind all of those would be exam. How many of you get excited about exams? Yeah? Well, our speaker today is Joe Casey, and he left part of the Scrabble board off of the end of his name there. If he put all his titles out, it literally would look like a Scrabble box emptied out. But DPE stands for Designated Pilot Examiner, and that's what you'll go do. Any certificate you want to go get, you'll go see this gentleman. But I've had the pleasure of getting mine with him. I know several of us in this room have done this. Joe is also a phenomenal teacher. You can't sit with him for 5 or 10 minutes without gleaning some Joeism. And I've taken those, I know Kent's done that. When you're sitting in the cockpit, there's something that he said that's just burrowed its way in the back of your brain here, and it's going to pop up in a moment and be a teaching moment. So he's really good at that. He's going to talk to us today not about teaching necessarily, although he learned some lessons from this. Joe's going to talk to us about a ferry flight he made on an aircraft from Africa back to America. Joe, come on.
Well, thank y'all for letting me be here, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk to y'all about flying. I was going to talk to y'all about best glide speed, but I was told that that might be just a little bit on the boring side for everybody.
Y'all are welcome.
Until your engine's out, then it becomes very
Actually, I got Clicker. All my stuff had jet prop slides and jet prop performance charts, and I mean, I had Anyway, if y'all want to go to sleep next time, let me know. Anyway, I met a lady. I remember I was I don't know, probably 10 years ago. I was sitting around thinking, what do I want to do with my life? And I was talking to one of my good friends, and I said, you know, I'm a little bored, don't know what I want to do. And the question was, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I'd just love to go see the world, love to go see what's out there and fly airplanes around. And so, well, why don't you go do it? And I was like, well, I don't know how to go do it. And I began to ponder the question of how do you go about doing it? So I went and just did what anybody does today, which is you go Google it. And if you go Google North Atlantic Crossing or anything, you're going to come up with a name called Margaret Waltz. Now, Margaret Waltz is a phenomenal lady, and I was bold enough to call her up and say, you know, hi, my name's Joe, and you know, I'm no competition to you whatsoever. I don't even know how to do what you're doing, but if you ever let me go on a flight, I'd sure like to do it. And she said, no, I don't have a hole right now, but I'll keep you in mind, and if something happens, that'll be fine. And I thought nothing of it, and that was it. And then probably 6 months later, she called me on like a Tuesday at like 5 o'clock and said, look, I'm flying a King Air to France tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. It leaves out of Springfield, Illinois or somewhere. Do you want to go? And of course the answer is yes. And so I canceled everything I was doing. I forgot what it was, but whatever it was, I canceled it. And I ended up getting to Springfield, Illinois early in the morning. And she wanted me to go because the airplane, the King Air, was Proline 21. Now, y'all that don't know what Proline 21 is, it's like really hard to figure out. It's like learning Mandarin Chinese or something. And so she said, you know, do you have any Proline 21 experience? And of course the answer is yes.
Still Proline.
So the whole time I'm on the airline flight up there to Springfield, I'm like, got my book out, Googled again, and I'm going to figure out how to do this. I remember taking off with her, met her, and how you doing? And we really progressed into a flight real fast. And I remember having on heading and altitude and going and like having my flight out, trying to figure out, you know, because I didn't understand any of it. By the time I hit Iceland, I had it all figured out. So it was really good, and thank God the weather was good. Anyway, I faked my way all the way to France, and it worked out great. But anyway, I learned to meet Margaret, and Margaret and I became good friends. To this day, she's one of the most phenomenal professional women I think I've ever met. She literally, when women weren't supposed to do jobs in the late 70s, she became did what I did, which is she took an airplane across the North Atlantic. The North Atlantic is kind of considered the holy grail of aviation. You know, it's really tough water, and you know, if you go down up there, you know, it's tough. You know, you're probably going to die. It's really, really long distances between things, and the water, those swells are huge, and the temperatures are cold, and it just sounds like an adventure. And I thought it was cool. So anyway, so I got into this, and Margaret let me go, and then another guy let me fly an airplane from Africa like 2 months later, and pretty soon I got into the ferry flying world, and I've done, I don't know, probably so close to 75 North Atlantic crossings, something like that now. But and so I've told people about it, and you gain I don't know if it's an love affair or just a like, or just it's kind of cool. Deanna's done a bunch of them now too. I kind of 12. Yeah, 12. There you go. Got her into this world as well, and she could tell stories. But I recently had a flight, and I started doing more and more of these ferry flights. And I had a flight recently that somebody called me up and said, "Hey, can you go get a amphibious caravan?" And instantly, I was like, yes, you know, when is it going to be? I don't care, I'll go. You know, that's an adventure. If there's never been an adventure, this is an adventure in my mind. And it was an adventure. I've done adventurous stuff, but this flight was an adventure. So, again, I was laying around yesterday saying, what should I teach about? You know, because I teach about anything. And I said, I'm going to do best flight speed. And she said, no, you need to tell them about your North Atlantic flight in an amphibious caravan. And so, if y'all are okay, I'm going to go off into my amphibious caravan. I don't know how long this is going to take, Y'all ask, you interrupt me anytime you want. If you see a picture that you want to talk about, that'll be just fine. You're not going to mess me up because I don't have a plan other than showing you a bunch of pictures. Okay? So I instantly thought, okay, this is going to be the safest one ever. I mean, if you lose an engine, I got floats. This is my problem. And now you're probably asking, have I ever flown an amphibious caravan? And the answer is
Yes! Oh, the honest answer.
no, I've never flown one. I couldn't believe that. No, I do have a seaplane ready. And
that's it.
And
no other time.
Maybe no. I bet I got.
Of rating.
I bet I got. I don't know, 8 hours of seaplane rating to have a seaplane. So and now I have 58 hours. So anyway, I couldn't believe they let me do it. I'd flown a caravan once or twice, but and I'd flown floats, but I'd never flown anything amphibious. But how many people out there in the world are stupid enough to fly an amphibious caravan from Africa? And insurance must have said, that's one guy, his resume looks all right. Maybe we'll give him a shot at it. So they did. So anyway, I got a shot at doing this project. It was really, really strange. And it was all the way down here in Nigeria. DNMM, and then up in Nigeria, this is still in Nigeria, went over to Algeria, went to northern Algeria, then France. EGAA is Ireland. BIKF is Iceland. BGSF is northern Greenland. That's actually pretty far up there. If you get a map like that where it makes the world go flat, Greenland looks huge and it's big, but not that big. But this is pretty far north into Greenland. Over to Iqaluit, Canada, which is you're just inside the Arctic Circle. Thank you very much. So very way on up there. I mean, CGYL is Le Grand Rivière, which is the Grand River, right next to the Hudson Bay, and then down into Duluth, Minnesota. And Duluth, Minnesota is northern for us. I mean, when we think of coal, we think of Duluth. Well, I was way north of that. You know what I'm saying? So that's my overall route on the flight. But first went over here to Lagos, Nigeria. If you look up DNMM, that's where it's at. Airline flights over there. I don't do airline flights overseas unless I'm sitting in first class or business, because I got to lay down. That's just, I don't know if I'm getting old or if that's just getting snotty, but I need to lay down when I'm going. So it's not a bad flight. I'm telling you, one of the modern marvels of our lives, I think, or of our existence, is the ability to get into an airliner, lay down, wake up 12 hours later on the other side of the world. And if you've never done it, you need to do it. I'm serious, because you live in a generation that, because of aviation, that has the ability to lay down, go on the other side of the world, wake up in a whole different culture. I mean, you couldn't dream of that 100 years ago. 200 years ago, it wasn't even, it was crazy. But you can do it and literally be there tomorrow, and probably cost you $2,000. You ought to go do it if you haven't done it. Just go see it. Because this is a very strange place, let me just tell you. It's not a very friendly place in terms of just being corrupt. And, it's just, anything that's French Africa is it's not a good, lovely place to be. And literally, I went inside there, landed, hotter than you can imagine, humid right on the coast. Yesterday was just like, God, it's hot out here. And just humid as could be. It was like that in Africa. About 34 degrees Celsius. I was actually thinking yesterday as the humidity was out, it was like, this is just like it was in Africa. Anyway, but landed here, went through customs, which was a mess. Got out, and literally the guy picked me up and drove a very short little while to a hotel that looked like America. I mean, it was like I went from third world and landed at the airport that was literally first world. Very, very nice. Interesting, there was all kind of hookers all over the place at the hotel. I'm just telling you, it's not a great, it's the stuff that American, you wouldn't recognize it, at all. The backside of the hotel opened up into this. This is so you talk about the poorest and the richest. I mean, there's Nigerians that are flying these things that are in the hangar, but look in the back of that hangar, there's my baby. And it was, and I showed up, and all the people, I showed up like this, and they were like, you're not a pilot. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a pilot. And I'm like, I'm actually a real pilot, and you know, these other people that show up have penguin uniforms on, and you know, all the different things. And there's always two of them, and they were totally freaked out that I was one guy to pick up that airplane. So anyway, they thought that was the craziest thing, and they treated me poorly until they actually figured out I'm a real pilot. You probably had this happen with you. You know, I'm a real pilot. I showed up. So anyway, I showed up to this thing, had to go through a bunch of paperwork to get it out of there. And I always grow a beard whenever I go on a flight. That's just the way I don't know. Doc probably appreciates that. It's the way I do that. So anyway, I showed up to this hangar and took this picture right before I left. This is over Lagos, and if you actually zoom into that picture, you see a lot of shanties, very poor, spread out all over the place. Nothing, no high-rise buildings at all. Gobs of people, and the traffic's absolutely horrendous. Is what happens there. As you start to fly north, it started to look like this because we're flying north to the Sahara. A lot fewer trees, starts looking like California in the deserty part, you know, where you got some green trees. But as you continue to go north, it goes into the Sahara, and it really turns into a, you know, where there's absolutely nothing, you know what I'm saying, as far as vegetation and all is concerned. I'll show you some more pictures of that. I landed up in the next town, which was, gosh, I can't remember the name of it. Anyways, the next town north up in there. And I landed, and this is me standing on the float, because the guy came up to me with this sheet of paper, which was a $500 fee for hooking up the electrical power to the airplane. In other words, to start the, because we were kind of wondering, because the battery was dead when I got there, and I was like, hey, you know, I don't want to be in the Sahara Desert with a dead battery, have that electrical. So these guys were like, we'll have electrical, $500. You know? So I took a picture, like, I'm going to think, you know, no one's going to believe that there's a $500 bill for this. But there's a guy with a $500 bill. And I said, unhook the thing, get it out of here. And anyway, I ended up not having to pay the bill. But this is you can see how the guy showed up. This is what they look like over in Africa. And the big question was, how do you get on top of the wing to fuel a Caravan on floats? That wing is way on up there. I'm talking about like 22 feet up there. It's way high. So what do you do? And we landed there, and they were like, and people everywhere were just checking us out, you know, because I'm the weird. Everywhere I landed, I'm the weird airplane. Like, what are you doing here with that? And so we figured out.
Desert with floats.
So we figured out what you do is you drive the truck up underneath it and then stand on the truck and refuel, and it worked out great. We figured this out in Africa. And you may be asking yourself, what was it like flying a Caravan on floats? And for some of y'all that's flown the 172 out here, it's just like it. It's a big, gigantic 172 where you sit up really, really high. You sit up higher in this than you do in a King Air. It has a very, you know, you feel like you're way up off the ground. The four tires are a little bit strange, but I remember, as a matter of fact, I think I even texted you whenever I took off, because everybody was wondering, can he do it? You know, I remember taking off and being at like 300 feet and texting Deanna and Travis and the others, and it's a big old pussycat. That's what it is. It's a big old gigantic pussycat to fly.
What kind of cruise speed?
160. It's got a PT6, and I found out that if I cruised at about 10,000, it's non-pressurized, so there's no oxygen. You know, so you can't go super high, and there's drag all over the place. I mean, this is like a drag monster. Maybe take a barn door, turn it this way, try to shove it through the air. Welcome to Caravan World.
Having that thing to go these distances with all that drag.
Yeah. I have 6 hours and probably 20 minutes of fuel, and that's going to come up here in just a minute. Because I'm telling you, you don't go across the Sahara Desert without going a long way. And this was rife with problems. When I first came up, it was, okay, how do you find airports with jet fuel where you can go a far enough distance without stopping everywhere? Everywhere you stop, you're going to write a $1,000 landing. So you don't want to like just stop here, stop there, stop. You know, and then you got the Sahara. How do you get across it? What about the North Atlantic? How do you do? I mean, there's all kind of things. How do you get refuel while you're there? Because there's places that don't have trucks. So this was just like a logistical nightmare of how to do this. But I'm having a blast doing it because it's an adventure and it's weird and it's fun and it's strange. And I'm only on stop one. I hope this doesn't go too long. You'll tell me if I hit.
You got 2 minutes.
I'm sticking around. And I got all the way across and see you later. This is in the middle of the Sahara Desert. I'm talking about. I came into the other. Hold on, let me go back over here if you don't mind. landed here. I literally would end up with like 15 or 20 people every time around the airplane, just to see what this
Holding
thing is.
$500 bill?
Yeah, oftentimes they were wanting money, but most everybody's inquisitive and just interesting, and wanting to find out who I am and what I'm doing there. And, it was that kind of a thing. Took off from here and began to go north up to Tamarasset is what it is. Tamarasset's nothing more than a literal oasis sitting in the middle of the Sahara Desert. There is nothing there. It'd literally be like taking off from Lufkin, Texas, and going to El Paso, but there literally be nothing between here and there. I mean, it is the picture I had earlier from the air. It is nothing like that. I mean, it's just nothing out there, and it's a place to refuel. And I mean, the Sahara is enormous and huge, just like you would think it would be. And I flew. It turned nighttime, and as I was coming into Tamarasset at night, so this is the next morning on this picture right here. But I came in there at night, and I saw the airport from probably, gosh, I don't know, maybe 100 miles away, because that time it had gotten clear and nice, and there was stars above you and black below you. I don't know if you've ever been in a place like that, but it was kind of cool. Millions of stars with no light pollution, so I turned all the lights down in the cockpit all the way, and was just kind of enjoying the view. You know what I'm saying? Just kind of enjoying this view. Came in here and landed, and they had two big gigantic runways and a road going from the city out to the airport. You could see the city, you could see that. No suburbs, it's a city, airport, black. That's all there was. And I came in there and landed, and felt no problems and all this kind of stuff. Woke up the next morning to find there was mountains all around. I didn't know there was mountains in the Sahara, but there is. And the big ones too. I'm talking about big mountains going up to like 9,000 feet. Big ones. And I'll show you some more pictures of that here in just a little bit. But landed here. They were Johnny on the spot for refueling, figured out the wing thing, all that logistically went well. Guy came up to me and said, I need your passport. And I was like, here it is. I'm not used to handing it over. And he said, I'll give it back to you tomorrow. And I was like, hey. It's not, you don't lose your passport internationally. That's like your thing. Basically, Albania had, Algeria. Thank you. It was one of those. Anyway, they have a real bad history of terrorism coming from there. They're very specific. You don't just pop into Tamarasset, you know what I'm saying? So he was like, here's the deal, we're taking this. And I called Warren and was like, dude, they're trying to take my passport. And he's like, where you're at, we can't help. Go figure it out. And eventually got to a place where it was just like, all right, here you go. I hope y'all are right. I got into the car and got a full police escort, lights going, sirens going, driving me all the way into town to the hotel where, I mean, they were very serious about all this kind of stuff.
What did that cost? $500 for that?
Yeah, seriously, you pay for everything.
Even the escort.
Got to the hotel room, and it was literally like a little tiny room. You lay on the bed. The picture of the old lady was here, and the picture of the young girl was right over here. And all I could think of was this old lady in my bed. It was like, the Star Wars Emperor. It's like, it was like, man, this is the weirdest thing ever. And the next weirdest thing happens, they knocked on my door twice that night, woke me up to come get money. And come get money. But what they were really looking to do is make sure I was still there. And that it was, I mean, the security is ridiculous. And I contrast it to say, different cultures. But they were very interested. Next morning, wake up, have this completely terrible breakfast, and another police escort all the way back out to the airport. I'm driving back to the airport, and there's these big mounds around. And I'm going, I didn't know anything about this. I'm sure that I didn't hear the mountain last night. And, I flew the flight route in. You know what I'm saying? It's like, but still. By this time, I'm oblivious to all that. So anyway, this was really fun, though. I thought this was great. Anyway, got back out to the airport. Beer's getting better. Working it out, right? And then you start driving north, and you start seeing some of these. These are bigger hills, sand that's going everywhere. As far as that's concerned, really, really pretty views of the Sahara Desert. This is by far my longest flight. I'm very concerned about the distance that I've got to go. There literally is not an option between there. You literally take off from here, you go to the next airport, there it is. there is a military airport, and I'm not about to go down the road of a military airport, but I will tell you, as I began to go, you began to have scenes like this that were, just nothing there. I literally flew for 4 hours and saw no sign of human life. No sign, not a road, not a trail, not a building, no sign of anything that I saw that was human existence.
Were you ever scared?
I was scared toward the end, and the reason why is this is an airplane I didn't know well enough, and I hadn't gotten comfortable with the fuel gauges. How many of y'all's fuel gauges are always right? Fuel gauges are wrong all the time, and I got it was like, how much is like, I'm sure what these things, but I'm literally, as I'm coming in here, 6 hours and 10 minutes is what in an airplane that I was totally uncomfortable with. Yeah.
So that text.
Okay. Yeah, here's my text to Deanna, who she's writing this. And I couldn't talk to anybody for 4 hours. No one, no ADSB, no one's tracking me. There's not anybody to talk to. ATC can't block. And so finally I get close, and Deanna texts me and says, "Going okay?" ? And I said, "Damn little fuel." Can I say that here? You just did.
$500 fine.
Damn little, and I wrote down, damn
Another $500 fine.
Damn you. Sorry, I had to go there. Damn little fuel. Again, I pulled back as far as I dare. Think I'll make it with 200 pounds remaining. And if y'all into 200 pounds, I ain't nothing. Nothing in a turbine. Okay, that's like nothing. And I literally, as I was coming in, I could see the airport, from 20 miles away. And I literally, as I'm coming in, thinking, okay, if my engine dies now, I'm going to that road. And if I go a little bit further, if my engine dies now, I don't want to go there, I want to go here. And that grassy field looks really nice. I don't know if you've ever been in a place where you really don't know. And I landed with like 170 pounds of fuel, which 170 pounds of fuel in your jet prop, I mean, you're literally talking about not much fuel at all. And it was scary. For me it was. Got on the ground, long flight, and I say hard flight in the sense I'm not talking to anybody, but it's, foreign place. There's all the rigors of the flight as far as that's concerned. And am I going to make it? And I calculated fuel and winds like every 10 minutes. I'm just calculating to see, is there any change whatsoever about to occur here? And it's just a mentally fatiguing, stressful time as you're thinking about all this and going to I landed there, and it was an utter disaster on the ground. I'm talking about the people came up to me. I could tell the story, but they were there's like a culture in that Muslim part of northern Africa of whoever yells the loudest wins. If you ever go watch go to, we have that in culture in America. If you go to like the basketball court on the the outdoor basketball court where the 20-year-olds are playing outside in the park, and go watch, if you fouled, no, I didn't foul you, and it escalates super fast to this loud shouting thing. That's like every day over there. And I got there, the guy wants me to fill out this paperwork, and they don't know how to fuel the airplane, and the guy wants the money, and this guy, and there's literally everybody yelling at me in languages I don't understand, and I look up, and there's a guy standing on the wing that had gotten up there, and you don't stand on me. It'd be like me going out to your 172 and standing on the wing. You know what I'm saying? And you just don't do that. And I was like, stop! You get it! And then the best English I could figure out, I would have had to pay some $500 fine. You get down now! And I like took command of the whole situation. It was the weirdest. I mean, it was like an emotional eruption of Algerian. Yeah, anyway, it wasn't pretty. Let me just tell you, they heard some cussing. They didn't know what I was telling them. I got them down, and I got the guy paid, and I got all the little things. I remember getting back into the airplane and just having one of those. I don't know if y'all ever have just an emotional letdown of, okay, this is all done. And I literally just sat there for about 10 minutes, and then I tried to go, and they wouldn't let me go, and it all ramped up again. And it was just, I had made so many enemies, but I got fuel, and I did get out of there. So, and I could talk about 30 minutes about that one situation right there. But I wasn't. You talk about having a long day. I wasn't even close to being done. I had another 5 hours of flying up through to France, and left here and went up to. What is LFLL? Gosh. They had a stadium sitting right there.
Leon?
Yes. Yeah, because I remember looking at the football field and I thought, Leon, what's that? It's not Leon or something. Anyway, but,
South France with
yeah. But it got dark whenever I was going across here and ended up landing, and the guy came out to the airplane and said, I need to refuel. He couldn't figure out how to get up on the thing, and he said, we are not allowed to stand on top of our fuel trucks because if you fall down, we don't have a thing to catch you, and we're all unionized, and we just simply can't do it. And it was like, well, someone's gonna have to figure this out. This is about midnight or something, by the time I'm getting there. And they basically said, you go to bed, and we'll wake up in the morning and we'll see if we can help you. And I was just like, great, give me a bed and we'll figure this out. And I woke up the next morning and it was just beautiful. Somebody had showed up with this lovely ladder and the guy came here. So this is in Lyon, France, and he fielded it, and this was just like perfect. And I was thinking to myself the whole time, this is going to be a bunch of liberal unionized, and they're going to tell me I can't refuel, and I'm going to be stuck in France, and it didn't happen. It showed up at the right thing. So anyway, flew from there by myself, went over to EAA, which is Aldergrove in Belfast, Ireland. Thank you. You got to help me out with all these when I mess it up here. So here you can, and it was a beautiful clear day in Ireland. You hardly ever see this either. And I flew across the English Channel. The whole thing was wide open, beautiful, clear. You never see it. One of the most boring things you can do is fly over the English Channel because you never see the English Channel. It looks like you're flying over clouds the whole time. But it was beautiful, clear. You can see the cliffs, like for the cliffs of Dover and all that kind of stuff. It was real pretty. Ireland's a lovely place during the day if you can see it. And met this guy. You know, let me see if this plays. Yeah, it turns it back over.
Man, so where'd you get that thing from?
I picked it up, yeah, from the local shop.
They brought it for me, didn't they?
They did.
Yeah, just for me, didn't they?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. They're so nice here in Ireland. They'll give you these orange things anytime you want, but you got to be the right kind of pilot to show up to get these.
That's exactly right. Yeah, they don't give them to just anybody.
Right. Pilots like us, they'll give the orange crackers.
That's right.
It's good stuff.
They're going to be good on the way back.
Yeah, I think.
What we got? Just enough.
Just enough for us.
Just enough.
See you later.
So the inside joke on this is Deanna goes over there and they give her these orange crackers, which are phenomenal. I mean, they're just gorgeous. And she got them and said, they're beautiful and they're great and they're lovely. And I was like, they are. And I got me some too. And then for like a year and a half, COVID shut down.
They were completely out.
They didn't have any of these things. So I show up on this flight, and this guy on the right, I'll tell you about him in just a second. But I show up on this flight, and the guy literally comes out there with 3 baggies, like a thing this big, of these orange crackers, and said, here they are. And I'm like, there, guys, great. We're not giving Deanna any of these. So
they still made that video instead.
So we made this video and sent it to her with this idea, you know, you're not getting any of these. The bad news is, she didn't get, I brought you a few, but we ate. Gosh, sorry, Doc, it was so bad. Yeah. Anyway, but I met this guy right here named Warren. Now Warren is my dispatcher. He works for Shepherd Aero. Warren is the guy that makes a lot of my arrangements and helps me with all the behind the scenes. Not a pilot. And he said, "Can I come on this flight because hey, this is kind of weird and fun and cool. And you know, how many times do we get to cross the North Atlantic in a caravan on floats, on amphibious floats?" So I said, man, come on. And he didn't know what he was going to get into because this is where the hard part started. This is, everything was easy up to here. Everything was a cakewalk up to this point. And Warren jumped on board. I'm so glad that Warren jumped on board because I don't know if I could have done it without him. This is where the flight got really, really hard. When you're going over the North Atlantic, you wear one of these things, and this is called an immersion suit. It literally covers every aspect of your body. When it's zipped all the way up, it literally, the only thing sticking out is your face and your head, and the rest of your body. The idea is if you go in the chilly waters of the North Atlantic, not chilly, the freaking cold water of the North Atlantic, instead of dying in 9 minutes, you might have 3 hours. Is that, I mean, it's
longer to suffer.
And I've worn these many times. I've jumped in my swimming pool in January with these things and floated around, and you know, it's no big deal as far as that's concerned, but it's not that cold. But the North Atlantic this time of year was very cold. So we basically, you either have the choice of flying with the immersion suit up to your waist, or in the back, or on all the way. Most pilots, if you're single engine piston, will put it up to your waist so that you can get it on, because they're so cumbersome. You know, like getting it on is just it's not going to happen. You literally not, and if you don't have it on before you hit the water, it's all done. You know what I'm saying? So we decided, hey, a turbine engine, single engine, we got a set of floats. We looked down at the water. The water is literally 20-foot swells. I mean, the idea of it being the North Atlantic and having floats, the floats would have capsized. It would have been a gigantic mess, but there would have been something floating there probably. And anyway, it would have been a mess. We did have a raft. I don't know what I would have done had I gone in, but we had the immersion suit. I thought to myself, this immersion suit will keep you warm. It'll keep you really warm. It's neoprene, about a good 1/4 inch thick, and I thought, good to go. I'm good to go with this. As it turned out, I wasn't good to go, and the reason why is it got cold. This is the windshield, and one of the other problems that I have with an amphibious caravan is all this drag surface, totally not allowed to get into ice, and how are we going to get across the North Atlantic without icing equipment? The answer is it didn't. I got ice. This is probably the worst of the ice I got, but this scared me enough going from Ireland to Iceland. We went to Keflavik, Iceland. And this is, if you got that much ice on your windshield, it's on every other part of the airplane. And this airplane started to slow down big time. I mean, when you get ice, the airplane slows down. Everything on it. We did have prop heat, which was great, but nothing else. And started to ice up right as we came into Iceland, and descended down. Thank goodness the temperature on the ground was about 38 degrees. When we hit about 4,000 feet, all the ice shed off the airplane, landed the airplane, and everything's fine. No big deal. But it had scared the padoodle out of me because I can't get into ice. How do you get across the North Atlantic and not ice up? And so it's like, I'm not sure what we're going to do. So we land in Iceland, and there was no wind. Everything was luscious and beautiful, and 38 degrees and all that. Went to the hotel, woke up the next morning to literally 40 mile an hour winds. Airplanes turned sideways. The airplane, I don't know if you can see it, but that tire's off the ground, about 4 inches off the ground there. It's hard to see exactly, but the wind was blowing the tail. The airplane is so high CG that the wind was pushing it and had lifted this. It could have just taken that airplane and flipped it over without any challenge. And instantly we went and got the tow bar out of the airplane, which we didn't think we were going to have to use. It's got a weird tow bar to get on it. Turned the airplane into the wind, and now we're totally weirded out by crosswinds. And the wind, the runways, and I could talk 30 minutes about this, but there's 2 runways. There's like a big gigantic X, and you think the winds are going to make it okay for you to go, but nope, the winds are like right across the X. So it doesn't matter what runway you got, you're going to have a crosswind at 40 knots. So now what do you do? What are you looking? What are you going to do with this? And the problem is that I've got to go from Keflavik, which is right here, and I've got to go over here to Congerlussuaq, which is right there. And between, this is actually like next week, but I took a picture of this because it's very similar to what happened this day. This is next week, but it's very similar. Basically, you get a wind that blows west, hits the ice cap, and creates snowstorms. It's very much like Buffalo, New York, or anywhere you heard of lake effect snow. It's kind of the same sort of a thing, where the wind blows like this, and you end up with this thing going here. And the question is, how do I get across that and not ice up? And the answer is, you go high. That's the problem. You go high. And so when you go high, I could give a long class on this one too, but you basically have to have liquid water in the atmosphere that's not frozen. It's called supercooled water. Okay, supercooled liquid droplets is what it is. And so if you go really cold, like frigid cold, there's none of that up there. So one of the safety factors when you have ice is either go low and get into warmth, or go super high and get into cold, really cold, and that's safe too, because you have to have liquid water to have ice form on the airplane. Like if I went over that freezer and pulled out a hunk of ice and threw it at the airplane, it's going to bounce off, right? So that's how it would be here. Go super high, you're safe. So the question is, how do I get across here? And the answer was, go high. And that's
How high?
12,000. 12,000 is as high as I could go, or as high as I dare go in this one. And you can't go much higher because there's not enough power to overcome the drag.
Well, they didn't have any oxygen. It's non-pressurized cabin.
That's right. That's exactly right. And notice these winds blowing this way across here and across here. And that's the other thing, because the distance from over here in Keflavik to Sandstrom is a long way. And I needed that tailwind. So I had to have a combination of no ice, tailwind to get me there. How many days are you going to have that? You're paying $1,000 a day to sit on the ground. It's just, you know, what do you do as a pilot? And there happened to be this beautiful little time where I needed to get off of Iceland, get across here to get high enough so I don't get ice to land there. Now the problem here, it's negative 30 on the ground temperature, and so there's no warmth potential at all. There's nothing's going to warm up off the airplane. You know what I'm saying? And I got 40-mile-an-hour winds here, you know, that are not going across. What we ended up doing, I wish I could really flower this up, but the FBO really helped out. We came up with the idea to tow the airplane with me in it all the way out to the runway backwards. We literally towed it all the way out to the runway, engine not running, me sitting in the airplane, 40-mile-an-hour winds, and into the where the nose is constantly pointed into the wind, and got out there, got just barely off the runway. I fired up, and then you basically, because the runway was wide, and I got 40-mile-an-hour wind, I took off from one corner of the runway across an angle of the runway, shaved off about 10 degrees, and was able to get to a place where I could do it without exceeding crosswind limitations on the airplane. Because that airplane sucks when it comes, another $500. So it sucks when it comes to crosswind components. And so, but I'll tell you, it worked perfectly. It was so lovely, and I got off the ground, and it was smooth. 40-mile-an-hour wind, smooth, because you don't have all these trees and everything everywhere. And really smooth, and it was one of the best decisions I made, because I had to get out of there. You know what I'm saying? Because I had to find the time to be able to get across. I'm using literally every aviation knowledge I've got to figure this out. But here's where my problem started. It started climbing and went up to 12,000. The problem at 12,000, it was negative 33 degrees. And my problem was the heater did not work in the airplane. I don't know if any of y'all have ever, and the cold was the theme of the day, not the theme of the day, the theme of the next 3 days. The cold, I don't know if y'all have ever been in absolutely bitter cold condition, but that's what it was. It was absolute, I've never been this cold in my life. Had an immersion suit on, that thick neoprene, had a jacket up underneath it, had 3 pairs of socks on. I'm thinking I'm good to go, but I found out that neoprene is not good. It's good in water. Yeah, but water that you float in, the water's 35 degrees, 36 degrees, which is absolutely cold water. But it's 35 degrees, it's not negative 35. There's a 70-degree difference between this. You see what I'm saying? It's huge. And I thought I'll be good in an immersion suit, and I'm telling you right now, I was absolutely not. And I don't know what it was in the cockpit, but it was negative 33 outside. It was probably negative 30 inside. I mean, it was just absolutely frigid. I have some pictures of my feet that I'm not going to show you. There'd be a serious $500 fine for pictures of my feet. I'm serious about that. My feet got very red. The heels of my feet, where they were sitting on the metal bottom, I was stacking stuff underneath them. I went to the back of the airplane to get all the socks and just lay clothes over me. Warren's doing the same. Warren's freezing his tail off inside this thing. We ended up landing in Sandstrom, and it never got warmer. All the way from 12,000 feet, all the way to the ground, it was negative 33. Got on the ground, windy snow, all the terrible things you would have, and I had a strut collapse. It was so cold. So now the airplane's listing, there's 4 of them, so there's listing. One tire's coming up off the ground because it never liked that ice, that wind that was blowing me in Iceland. And I ran inside and literally sat next to the heater and was just doing everything in my power to gain all the heat I possibly could, knowing you can't stay the night there. And we had to take off by 6 p.m. because the airport closes. It was a Saturday evening. And you can't stay there. It's just, you just simply can't do it. And so I had to fly again. By this time, by 6 p.m., the sun had come up about that far, and it was just like shining in the cockpit lovely, lusciously. But now the sun is like really going down. And the sun was probably providing a little bit of warmth. I'm telling you, when we took off from there, and absolutely gorgeous. But I'd love to show you a picture, but I can't. I literally can't show you a picture. I will show you a few pictures I should have shown you a minute ago. This is the ice cap. This is, you cannot, I'm going to come back to the, I got 3 pictures here I want to show you. You cannot, I cannot articulate the immensity of the Greenland ice cap. I cannot, it's so big, it's so white, it's so large, you just can't get an appreciation for it unless you go see it. That's a mountaintop. That's a mountaintop.
Above the ice.
I'm 1,000 feet above the ice. That's a mountaintop sticking up through the ice. I tried to get a picture. This is the edge of the ice cap. So the ice cap's up here. All that white stuff's ice cap as it comes down into the area here. And this is just a huge glacier coming down. You can see the ice cap up here as it comes down, and then this is a glacier that's going down into a valley. Probably, if I had to pick 5 top places, most beautiful in the world, probably 3 of them are going to be in Greenland. That's my opinion. You there? Yeah. And I'm talking about Alaska, Adriatic coast of Greece. You know, there's some of these different places. This Greenland is the place you want to go see if you want to see immense beauty. It's just staggering as far as that's concerned. So, but I don't have another single picture. And the reason why it's so cold. I literally couldn't pull my hand out of I don't have another picture of the flight. I wish I could show you a picture, but I have a long way to go. A long way to go. So got up here to CYFB, which is Iqaluit. I landed in Iqaluit in literal, Doc, I don't know where frostbite starts and stops, but I was there. I'll show you pictures because you probably see some gross things in your life. I'll show you my feet, but they were really red, really terrible. I literally couldn't get out of that. To step out of the airplane onto the thing hurt my feet. My feet were so cold. My hands were. I touched the side of the thing with it to get. I had to undo the latch. I pulled the glove off and put my hand on the thing. My hand stuck to the strut that was there. I mean, it was. Yeah, I'm talking about some absolutely frigid. I've never been that cold. Got out of there and there was a guy that was there, and he basically said, if you want to go in that building, it's going to cost you $600 because the FBO basically has a monopoly on heat up there. So when I landed, that's their deal. They sell no fuel. All they do is they have a building. And if you want to go in that building, it's $600. I'll pay the $600 and hate that FBO. That's one of it's my worst one ever.
And when you say to go in the building, you just mean you, not the plane?
Not the plane. Oh,
just
no.
$600.
$600 to walk in that building. That's right. That's it. That's it. And you have to go talk to the Canadian what do they call it, Customs and Border Patrol people, and they were like, "Please, let's go in the building." I mean, it's -33. You don't do anything outside when it's -33. I mean, I don't know. Anybody ever been here in -33 before? Tell me, is it cold?
Very cold.
Extremely. You don't. I mean, it's the engine's cold. Everything's so cold. The airplane's sitting outside. Which the next morning when I came back, I was like, man, how am I going to get this thing started? Of course, the FBO's there to help me if I want to. Guess how much an engine start with an electrical plug is? $600. You know, the guy in Africa was nothing. This guy was, you know what I'm saying? That's just to start your engine up. I tried to start it without it, and I couldn't. It wouldn't. The engine wouldn't start. It was just so cold. You know, same thing in your jet prop. You got that plug in on the side. It wouldn't start. And so I had to pull out the checkbook, write another check for the $600, and got it started. I was so thankful I did. But now I've got frost all over the airplane. I got frost on the outside. I got frost on the inside. I mean, I'm rubbing this thing down. It's so cold. All I want to do is take off and just get the bleep out of there. Save $500. So, and bleep I did. Yeah, have y'all ever driven your car where you like rub a little thing in the window? I rubbed a little thing in the window, taxied out, took off, and of course sublimation occurs, and everything flew off the airplane. By now I'm just like, I just got to go. I got to back up, time out, let's go back. Because that morning I woke up and it's like, Warren's with me. What are we going to do different? We got to do something different. And we went to, there was a lady that drove us to, for the $500 or the $600 fee, we also got to drive to the hotel. So the lady drove us to the hotel, and when she did, we stopped off at a gas station just and a hope and a prayer that they had a coat or something. I would have paid big bucks for anything. And they did. They had these things called hand warmers. You know, ever heard of hand warmers? Like rip them open out of the little bag, shake it up just a little bit, and you know, the hunters got them in their pockets. And we were like, thank you, Lord. Let's have a, I don't know what you call it. Let's have something right now. I know I got some hand warmers. Next morning we wake up, come out to the airport, start the engine, get everything going, take off, pull out the hand warmers, rip them open. I had like 20 hand warmers. You know what I'm saying? Pulling them up and stuffing them down at the bottom of the immersion suit. I'd walk out, you know, the airplane, you get in with this immersion suit on, stuffing hand warmers, not a single one of them worked. That was the most dejected thing I felt as I took off from there, going down the Grand Riviera. Not a single hand warmer worked. It was another 5 hours of just brutality. Just, I've never, in a mental place, I got at least two docks in here. There's probably more, but I don't know if y'all have ever been to a place where your mind begins to go down. I remember going to the back of the airplane to like, maybe there's something back there that I can put over me. It would take 10 minutes to get to the back of the airplane because it's just, you just slow. Everything dumbs down to a dangerous place. It was the wrong place to be entirely. And just dumbed it down and ended up going to the back of the airplane. Just, everything we did was just so cold. I landed in Le Grand Riviera and get out of the airplane, barely get out of the airplane, walk inside the building where there's heat, took everything off. Well, I mean, I had a few things on, but I didn't care. And literally went inside, I took it off and laid on the floor inside the FBO, which was a terminal building there in Le Grand Riviera. Snow everywhere, you know what I'm saying, just in cold. It's still negative 30 on the ground in the Grand Riviera. Just, I could never get away from the cold. And then something beautiful happened. And there was 2 airline pilots that were airlining out on the next flight, and they saw my condition and knew what it was, and saw Warren's. And he said, I'm going to help you out. And he went out to his truck and came back with a grand total of 8 foot warmers. And the expiration was not expired. Checked it. But then you didn't want to fire that thing up because you got a set amount of time before this thing like it comes out with a bang and then it tails off. You know, I didn't want that tail off to happen before I got to Duluth. And I'm still up in land with this like there's nothing here. You know what I'm saying? I mean, this is like the Sahara except it's cold and white. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing out there.
What time of year was it?
This is in March, very early March, and bitter cold, just bitter cold the whole time. And cracked open those foot warmers, and thank you Lord, they worked. And I stuffed them down, but still, foot warmers and everything. I'm now not. I had already hurt my feet to a point where I was still hurting, but it wasn't as bad. You know what I'm saying? I had the hand warmers and the foot warmers, and it wasn't as bad. Until we got in Duluth, and as we about an hour out of Duluth, all the heat from the foot warmers were gone, and it was still negative 30 in Duluth. It was just stinking cold. And then there was more snow and everything in Duluth, but again, it was so cold that I didn't worry about ice too much. But then the airplane started getting so cold that little things on the airplane started to go bad, like the electrical device, the autopilot started focusing a whole bunch, so now I'm hand flying everywhere. It's nighttime, the sun goes down. I mean, it's just, all the warmth just went away. It was just, I've never been that cold in my life. Landed in Duluth, not the cops, but the Border Patrol came out, saw my condition again, brought us inside. I'm barely walking in my immersion suit back, and they were like, "Why are you wearing an immersion suit? Because you didn't come over water." It's like, that's all I had. Because they said, well, I thought this was going to keep me warm. It didn't. I'm telling you, got to the hotel that night. I don't know if y'all have ever been I got in like a hot bath. You would think you could you can't take a hot bath. You can't, it hurts. I mean, but I got in water, but it wasn't hot water. I mean, it was the coldest I've ever been in my entire time. The story of this trip was cold. I told y'all a bunch about this trip. I did a podcast. I don't know if y'all have ever, if any of y'all listen to podcasts, I do a thing called the Malibu Guru podcast, which you'll be on later today. Sorry. I interview my clients that have jet props and different airplanes, so it's kind of fun. And, but I did a thing on this. If y'all want to hear this story in maybe a little more in depth, you can go listen to the podcast and talk. But made it to Duluth and landed the airplane. Came here, and this is me on the ground in Duluth, both of us. I don't know if you can see the red face and all the different things that are happening there. It's and a really good beer. So it was definitely happening. But this was a flight that some people have asked me, what was I completely a fool and ignorant for doing? And the answer is maybe so, maybe not. I'm a guy that's always up for an adventure, and I like to think I'm calculating when I do. I didn't see the heater thing coming. With the heater, it wouldn't have been a bad deal. I could have handled it without any trouble. With the heater not working, could I have gotten it fixed? And the answer is not that there. There's no hangers up there. You can't put it inside. Mechanics aren't going to work on something when it's negative 30 whatever outside. What do? And I couldn't think of anything other than get in the airplane and go flying. And so was there things I could have done differently? And there probably are. But I will tell you, I know I could not have thought of them. Again, your mind begins to go down as far as, can you just process everything well? And I don't know what I would do in that case, other than deliver the airplane.
Did the heated prop save you? Somebody told me if you have only one de-icing thing, make it a heated prop. Do you agree with that?
Because you gain thrust.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. You have thrust to your benefit. If you don't have a heated prop on, like step one in your jet prop, if you're going into icing, you get your prop on. It's a free insurance policy to develop thrust. And when icing is a exponential and cumulative effect, meaning that when you get ice on the prop, your thrust goes down, your weight goes up, the drag goes up, and you begin to slow down rapidly. Now you stall, the stalling speed, angle of attack is decreased. Everything gets bad with ice. Ice ain't no friend of yours. That's all there is to it. Did I make good decisions going up super high? I think so. I think I understood the weather and understand how to do it. It was just, the only thing I could think of to do on this was, don't fly the flight. Wait till July. But you can't, yeah. But then you're taking off, and it would have presented a whole other set of problems. I mean, there's a bleed air valve that's on the bottom of this engine, basically. And this airplane was in Nigeria for the last 10 years. That bleed air valve had never been turned. In 10 years, no one who's turning on a heater in Nigeria? No one. You know what I'm saying? It literally was probably the twist of a wrench to open up the valve to get the hot air going. But in Nigeria, who's turning on a heater? No one. So it was just a strange, weird, But from an aviation perspective, it threw everything at you, from the heat of Nigeria to the cold of the North Atlantic to the ice that's occurring to personal fatigue to cold and its effects upon you. All this was, and it was just a challenging flight as far as that's concerned. So, y'all have a little local hero back here.
Oh, right here, wearing maroon.
Yeah, here she is right here. That's the best picture I could find as far as that's concerned. But anyway, Bailey did a real cool video, did a great job with the, this is in the hangar. If you get a chance, you can barely see it, but it's in the hangar. Go look it up. Go in the hangar, Bailey, and she pops right up. So check
is that YouTube?
You done any flying in Alaska?
Sir?
Have you flown in Alaska?
Many times.
Many times?
I go to Alaska.
You know where Katovik is?
Where who?
Katovik?
No, not offhand.
For the Canadian and Alaska.
Okay.
For the Arctic is.
I go to a place called the Matanuska Valley. When I go there, there's a place
Barter Island, does that ring a bell?
Do again?
Barter Island?
I've heard of it, but I don't know where that's at. Okay. If you go to Anchorage and then you go northeast from there up the Matanuska Valley, there's a place called Kingdom Airport. I go up there and do check rides every year. Okay. So, but yeah, I love Alaska. I've gone across Alaska, like if you go, I've crossed Alaska to go to China many times. So I've been across there. Alaska is a cakewalk compared to Greenland. Yeah. Alaska's a cakewalk.
You think you could have made that flight without your co-pilot?
No, the reason why is...
Generally, I mean...
No, that's it. I don't mean this to sound weird, but I've had a weird year, if you want to. And one of the things that we all need is other people in our lives. You desperately need other people. You need friends. You need somebody to talk to. Just somebody here to go, what do you think, man? Keep you awake, keep you going, keep you talking. we started talking about some weirdo, stupid stuff, which is exactly what you want to do. You know, when you get past the hi, how you doing, and what's the weather doing today, and you start talking about real stuff, and it was real conversation. What I needed was that, something to keep your mind cooking on something. Does that make sense? And his presence was there mainly for that.
It's interesting that you did this today. You know what happened 95 years ago today?
No.
Charles Lindbergh landed in France.
Is it today?
Today.
It's beautiful. I love that. I have over 50 books of Charles Lindbergh. He's the most famous man of the last century, bar none. And I own a 1940 Porterfield that, whenever it was built, was delivered to New York and to the, what's the name of that airport? Golly, I should know this off the top of my head. Anyway, he took off from New York. Gosh, what's the name of the airport?
Roosevelt Field.
Roosevelt Field. Good job, man. You get the brain transfer today.
You win the $500.
Yeah, you win the $500. Roosevelt Field is in New York, and that's where Lindbergh took off and flew. My Porterfield, when it was made in May, was flown to Roosevelt Field. That's where it's based out of. There's now a Roosevelt Mall that's been built over that field. That field's no longer there. We lost our history. But I did not connect today with Lindbergh, but that was a...
Took off on May 20 and landed May 21.
Yeah, that's the same type of stuff as what he had to fly through to get to all that. And it's amazing. My flight, the challenges that he had was the unknown and navigation. Those are the big ones that he had. My challenges were neither one of those. I knew what I was going into, and I had great predictive stuff. But it goes back to, you get into a very harsh environment, you better have all your P's and Q's ready to go. You better know what you're doing.
I noticed the tail number was still in-registered, so they had kept it over in Nigeria the whole time?
You'll find that all the time. People in foreign nations will have C for Canadian or whatever, for E for Germany. You know, like we're in, you know, whatever, that's the United States. If you have that airplane over in some foreign nation, a lot of times they'll keep them in registry because they don't have to pay tax. The taxes are far less. Which I could talk for a long time about how cheap it is to fly in America. I know y'all complaining about expensive fuel and how expensive it is. Let me just tell you, you go anywhere else in the world, I don't give a rip what nation it is, you go anywhere else in the world, and they do not have the ability to learn how to fly. They're all coming to the United States to learn how to fly, to go back to hopefully get a job, because there ain't no such thing as jumping my 172 to learn how to fly. You have a privilege here that is undeniable, and everybody in this room and beyond ought to go learn how to fly. You want to know, you know, we say in America that the most respected in the world would be, I guess, doctors and lawyers and businessmen that own the big time.
Lawyers.
What's that?
Not all lawyers.
Right. You step off American soil, the most prestigious, the one that gets the most credibility is a pilot. Wow. Absolutely. Absolutely. The pilot, because they simply don't have the ability. If you're a kid that lives anywhere outside the United States, you literally have no chance of becoming a pilot. Here in America, you can do it. And if you do, there are people, one of the biggest businesses in Hawaii is glider flying. Why? Because the Japanese will come over, get a glider license, which they can do in 20 hours for fairly cheap, go back to their home country and say, I'm a pilot. Wow. Never fly a glider again, but because they're a pilot, their position in society goes up. Does that make sense? It's a very interesting thing. So pilots are...
Pick up line.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a pilot. That's exactly. Well, I think I bored y'all more than y'all stand. Thank y'all for, I didn't know how long ago, I sense it's longer than it should have been. Is there any other questions before I hand the mic back?
One more comment.
All right.
What about you being cold? You ever think about the waist gunners in a B-17 in Germany? 35 degrees below zero?
Can I tell you, I'm a history buff, and I really, really love that kind of stuff. I love positioning myself in aviation back in the time. I own a Stearman, and I love the idea of taking people flying in something of a yesteryear. And you know, picture a Stearman where you're flying in an open cockpit biplane, except they didn't have an intercom. You're literally yelling from the front. They had this tube that you yell through. They went to a tube that went to the guy's ear, and he didn't have one talk back to you. Think about learning how to fly. I mean, Kent, you're teaching people how to fly, And you got an intercom where you can literally talk like we're talking right now, if not better. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we have such good things, but I love taking people to a place and time that really was different than we have today. And that, you're exactly right. Anybody that was part of the B-17 community, anything back in there was a true hero.
Those guys were standing with an open hole in the cockpit at 35 below zero.
That's exactly right.
For extended periods of time.
Let me tell you a little story since y'all all hits your bus. This is about B-17s. When I was first went into practice, one of the guys that was a military pilot during World War II, but he was in the military, the Army Air Corps as they call it, when World War II started. So he stayed at stateside and was an instructor. And one day, early in the war, B-17s just coming in, etc. And they said to him, Captain Snow, we really don't know what the B-17 does in really bad icing conditions. And this was in Ohio, and it was one of those nights. So he put the full crew in there, and they go up. And he said, well, what happened is what you'd expect. Just more and more ice, and goes up, and it stalls, and the ice breaks off, and they go up and do it again. And so he sent the co-pilot back to get his gloves, because it was cold in there, like you're talking about, etc. And he came back, and he said, well, what are all those guys doing back there in the back? He said, they're all standing beside the Bombay doors with their parachutes on.
I'll give Mr. Joe Casey a round of applause. That was such a good story. With all of the storytelling, the lessons learned, and just the details. And I'm going to go listen to. I'm going to get with you later to find out how you access this podcast. So.
Malibu Guru.
Malibu Guru.
Yeah, well, whatever it's on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
So what I may do, if y'all would like, I'll send it out. I have everybody's emails. So I can send out Malibu Guru podcast from Mr. Joe Casey. So again, thank you very much. That was definitely true. So let's see. Last thing, I just wanted to see on old business. Yes, sir.
I know you're wrapping up. I do want to cover some old business right quick. Mr. Keith Jones has been diligently working on a project. If I can allow him a couple minutes to tell us where we are.
Take a second. If you think Joe is exciting, you ought to see our antenna. It's exciting to Chad Lee and I and Kent worked on putting that antenna up so that we could, well, actually have 3 scanners. And we're going to be transmitting those over the internet. You can listen on Listen ATC. Live ATC, excuse me. I've been dealing with Dave, and we actually did a test of it yesterday. And so 130, 48, 125, 175, and 123.0 are frequencies here for Houston Center. We're going to be broadcasting those on Live ATC. And so we should go live maybe tomorrow or early this week. And so if you haven't done that, you'll be able to listen to all the broadcasts.
And when you say live ATC, do you mean on the internet?
Yeah.
Yes. Or you can get an app.
There's an app as well. I just listened to one of the Houston controllers yesterday complain that their frequency isn't, they're on 134.8, and they're like, I never get recorded.
They're about to be.
They're about to be.
Yeah, in fact, I was listening, he was in New Hampshire yesterday, and I was listening to him listen to us testing this. So if you look on that file cabinet right there, leave them on, don't turn the scanners off. There's 2 old scanners and a new scanner goes inside of a little Raspberry Pi. So it should be online tomorrow.
So if we're going to screw up on the radio, do it today then.
Yes, that's
right. So I'll try also in the email that I send out, I'll get with you to include how to access it into the app and then what channel.
I'll let you know. And by the way, Chad put that antenna up there. Kent and I, he did 90, Chad Lee, he did 98%. I was there about 2%, and Kent was also there.
Supervisor.
If you've ever, I got asked earlier about the language, English being the official language and what it's like when you travel internationally. Live ATC is a great way to go pick up a foreign country's frequency and just listen. They are technically speaking English. But if you want to know another aspect of what is happening on these ferry flights, just straight up communication is also sometimes a challenge. But Live ATC is a great venue for, listening in advance to what's happening there.
Awesome. Yeah, because that, in all countries, they speak English for ATC.
Usually, sometimes.
English-ish.
If they want to.
English-ish. So, okay. And that was the only thing I had for old business too. So, any new business before I shut the wall down? Yes, sir.
I don't know how many here are interested in flying, but they're
yes, sir.
On May 30, Memorial Day.
Yes.
There's a flying at Thompson Airport Park.
Okay.
Which, if you don't know where it is, it's just north of Canton.
Oh,
yes.
Yes, sir.
And I think it's 1TA7. It's a private airport. But 11 to 2, and there's flying lunch, hot dogs.
What day is that?
Memorial Day.
Memorial
May
Day.
30.
Okay.
John, one other, I know a lot of y'all are always looking for a place to go eat. It's been open, closed, but we just flew over to Brenham yesterday. Their cafe's back open. It's wonderful, so go try it out. They're not in poodle skirts like they used to be. The last time I went over, took my son about 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago, and said, hey, we need to go there, old 50s Diners, a lot of you been there. And we got in, and it was 2 ladies in poodle skirts. One of them was about 9 months pregnant in her poodle skirt. A little strange, but no, it's just normal diner now. Good hot dogs or hamburgers, that sort. So make a trip.
Yeah, good to know. All right. I guess my last thing is a motion to adjourn today. Anybody want to?
Ooh.
Mark Dunn makes a motion to adjourn. Got a second? Got a second right here. Y'all have a good day. All right, good. All right.